morning, everybody, and welcome to the first Campfire Chat of 2022. I'm Charlotte Paul. I'm the newest member to the Donor Motivation Program, and I will be covering Vancouver Island. And today I've invited my friend, Múthoní, who is a Senior Planned Giving Officer of Engagement at the CAMH Foundation and is spearheading their Women Mind initiative. So this gives myself and Múthoní the opportunity to talk about something that we're both very passionate about, which is women and philanthropy. So Múthoní, welcome. And why don't we start by you just talking a little bit about the Women Mind initiative, what it is, how it came to be, and when you launched, which was, I believe, March 2020, so just at the start of the pandemic. So I'd love to hear about that whole experience.
Oh, thank you, Charlotte. And so I just want to correct you. I'm not the Plan Giving Officer at CAMH, but I am the Senior Philanthropy Officer for Engagement. And in my role, because we do have someone who leads the plan giving at the foundation, in my role, I am the lead for Women Mind. And as you mentioned, Women Mind is an initiative that was launched in March of 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. So it's not the, it's not that that's the way it was planned. That was going to be the launch, and as I understand it, and I've only been at the foundation for a year, so when it was launched, I wasn't present. But it is, an initiative that our president and CEO, Deborah Gillis, who I think when she came on to working at CAMH, realized that the work around women's mental health was, I guess, like many places, it's not always work that is prioritized. And there was this gap with focusing on women's mental health. And the initiative really has two, I guess, overarching goals. And one of them is to advance the research of mental health for girls and women. And then the other is to, really help to advance the career of women scientists, researchers in the work of women's mental health. And so that is the sort of the driving force of why this work started. They realized that there is this sort of gap, and we know from even when we look at what's happening now with the pandemic, women are bearing the brunt of the COVID crisis. And so, we know that, and there's lots of research to show that when it comes to women's mental health, we just don't have a lot of treatments and options. And we tend to women tend to suffer more from mental health related illnesses than men do. And so there's this disproportionality when it comes to, do that research work. And so out of all of this, CAMH is now leading this work at the hospital. They're prioritizing it. And Women Mind is an initiative that is bringing a community of women philanthropists together who are excited and want to ensure that the research work for women's mental health is taking place. And it's grown since March of 2020, and I'm really excited to be part of this work and to see women's mental health being advanced at the hospital, not just at CAMH, but across our country.
And when you are working with these lovely women who I've actually had the opportunity of meeting some of them when I came and was a guest on one of your calls, how are you addressing things like being inclusive within a group like this? Because I know traditionally when we're looking at donors, there's a very sort of, it's not the most diverse group, let's put it that way. So how are you addressing challenges like that within this Women Mind initiative?
I think like any, it's not a secret that philanthropy is a very white space. And so that in itself presents, challenges, because historically, in inviting other non-white, I guess, donors has always been sort of not, at least in my experience, it's not always something that has been prioritized. And then, I think, when we look at the inequities with wealth, most of the wealth doesn't always sit, historically, it doesn't always sit with, non-white donors. And so there is that perception, that only a particular group of people are wealthy. And so, most of the focus tends to be there. We are, our demographics is changing and donors are changing. And I think, we have to, I think we, as organizations, we would be, closing ourselves to opportunities of engaging other donors who are not typically the donors that we expect to see. And I think it's, it's a challenge even for CAMH. It's a challenge to diversify our donor base. But I think with this with Women Mind initiative, I think because this is an initiative that is speaking to all women from all backgrounds, I think it is an initiative that is drawing, and it's easier to have these conversations with not just your typical, white donors or philanthropists. So I think it's still something that we have to work on, because because of, I guess, the traditional models of philanthropy and the way things are set up, it's not always easy to engage, other groups, because there is this perception that, that it's not easy to engage those donors because they're not seen, is not places where we typically see support come from. So, we have work to do, but our goal is to, make it more inclusive and, and to have a more engagement opportunities where we are reaching out to individuals who want to learn more about Women Mind and offer those opportunities through, our various engagement avenues, right? And then to just really use even our current members, especially those members who come on board who are coming from those diverse groups, to help us to be able to open those doors to more diverse women donors who, and we do this through, again, through events that we host, and just really trying to think of ways to just make it more inclusive.
And do you find, because I know when we're talking about Women Mind, we're talking about individuals who identify as women. And do you find there's a bit of an education piece that happens with some of the traditional older donors that you're working with?
Absolutely. I think, I would have to say, given that even in the last 2 years with what's happened with George Floyd's death, I think, there's been this sort of a racial awakening. And I think, a lot of organizations are doing a lot of education around, the racial disparities, particularly even racial disparities across, philanthropy. And I think, organizations are trying to, educate not just their staff, but their donors around, around these issues and being more open to having these conversations. And I think then that also leads us to, ways of thinking about engaging more diverse donors, right? But I think, that it's unfortunate in a way sometimes, yeah, that it took a racial awakening to get people to want to invest more in this work in this area. But I'm glad to see that there's been some changes within organizations to actually have these conversations.
And one of the things I really took from being a part of joining your group when I came to speak to them was the diversity in age. Like, you had some quite young women who were part of the community, and then some older women, and the wisdom that was being shared from the older generation to the younger in terms of giving and how they started giving. And I thought that was really neat to sort of see. And I'm sure that probably your younger members are helping to educate some of the older ones on some of the things that we just spoke about. But is there anything that sticks out in your mind of the group that you're working with in terms of what they're getting as from being part of the community, besides being able to give back to CAMH?
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting things that for me that is happening with Women Mind is sort of that intergenerational giving or opportunities to engage, where the women members can engage, not, let's say if there's, the older women are engaging their daughters, there's an opportunity to engage, grandmothers, and I think your sisters, your aunties. I think it's become sort of this family way of giving, and also men who are supporting their women family members to become part of this. And so I think that opportunity that opportunity to engage family in that way has been very interesting for me to observe. So it's not just, that family, that female family member, single family member who is engaged, but it's giving them an opportunity to engage other family members. And our founding member, who, which is not a secret, her name is Sandy Trillivan, and she really came when they launched Women Mind. She gave over half of the $10 million goal that we have for Women Mind Initiative, and it was a family gift, and it was something that was important to her, that they do this as a family, because she, has her own lived experience with mental health, and so bringing in her family to really advocate for this work was important to her and important to the women in her family, and not just the women, the men in her family. And so I think that has been quite unique. And I think as she goes around and tells her story, it is something that, I hope to see other members, who join, as when they do join, that they're not just thinking about themselves, but they're thinking about how they can bring their daughters alongside, because, mental health is an issue that will some way or another impact us all as women. I know, when you think about like cancer, I'm sure every one of us knows someone, even if it's not someone close to us, who has suffered from cancer. And I think, it's the same thing with mental health. We know someone at some point in our lives, if it's not in our family, who will suffer from mental health. And I think, and as the studies show, women tend to suffer a great deal more than men. And so I think putting money against this initiative, this work is important because I think women who are the core of their families, they make decisions, they're taking care of loved ones. When women are not well, it impacts families, it impacts communities. So it's important that we put money against this work and help create treatments and options for women.
And what do you think, besides the regular hurdles that you face as, engaging the community, is there anything specific to engaging the female donors or the women donors that you've worked with or that you're trying to engage with?
I mean, I think, the pandemic has created a situation where, we're meeting over Zoom and everything is it's virtually. And, naturally as women, we love to gather and and I think there's so much, power when we are gathered in person and we can have those conversations. And I think, that's the strength of women is to, we love that, to be able to be in community with one another. And I think the pandemic has created, that challenge. And so I think engaging, coming up with ways to keep our members engaged and, in the same way I would say it's been a challenge. And like most of us, we are Zoom fatigue. And so it's also a challenge to just think about creative ways to continue to do this virtually. And so I would say that's been a barrier and a challenge because just because naturally, the ability to be able to meet together is so different. And I'm hoping, soon that we'll be able to have these more in-person opportunities, because I would love to meet all of our members in person and I haven't. So, but this is where we're at. And I would have to say that's one of the challenges. And then the other is, we have to continue to think about like we just mentioned with regards to making it more inclusive, making it more open to more diverse women and having those different voices at the table. Because I think when we talk about a community of philanthropists of women, I think about, having women who are coming from different places and backgrounds, and that not only will enrich in our community and the work that we're trying to do and achieve at CAMH.
So you said coming up with sort of new, unique ways to engage. Have you come up with any brilliant ideas that you want to share with the group? Because I'm sure we'd all love to hear any ideas that you have at this point.
Well, we host these and it's, it's not anything new. I'm sure, other organizations do it, but what we do is we have these salons where we have members we get our members to host them. And, it's an opportunity for them to, to sort of lead the discussion as opposed to us leading the discussion, right, CAMH? And so I find that is quite, an engaging way. And it also allows our members to, they're not just supporting us financially, but they actually become advocates, and they, by, hosting a salon and thinking about who they want to come to the salon and being engaged, sort of in that planning process and thinking, helping us come up with the sort of the theme, although the overarching theme is around women's mental health, but, they get to be involved more directly as opposed to, just coming to something that they just sit, listen. This gives them an opportunity to really, sort of get your feet wet and then, really be the advocate that many of the women who are part of this want to be. They want to see changes when it comes to research with regards to women and girls' mental health issues. So what a way to get involved and then also have your voice heard.
And I see a couple of questions. I'm going to move in a little because I can see they're coming in, but I can't actually read them. So even though I have my glasses on, I'm going to move a little bit closer to the camera. Are the salons also cultivation activity, reference to building an invite list? So I guess are there women that you invite to these salons who maybe aren't part of the community, who are thinking of joining?
Yeah, these are always, so for instance, if I'm, the host and I'm looking at my network and who I want to invite, they're not members, but they're, potential members. So it is definitely a cultivation tool that we like to use. And, we build up that invitation list with the support of our host, right?
Which is kind of neat because it's not coming from you, it's coming from somebody who they know and most likely probably similar interests because the host knows the guest. That's a very neat idea. Another question from the audience, Múthoní, what have been some of the small indicators that have shown you that your organization is opening up to a broader community?
I think the journey that CAMH is on, in general, like their equity journey, they have, we have a dismantling anti-Black racism action plan right now that that has 22 quite aggressive actions, and I think they're really trying to integrate this work, these actions into the work that we do every day. And as well, when it comes to Indigenous work as well, we have an action plan for that, and there are conversations that are taking place at CAMH with staff. We have town hall meetings. So I think all of that work is, helping guide our equity work, and also how we have conversations, with volunteers and donors.
And do you find those conversations are fairly organic in how they come up, or is it really something you have to make aware of what you're doing?
I think, like for me with Women Mind, it comes up in an organic way, but I also, if you think about the sort of the two arching goals that we're trying to fulfill, and even when we have sort of these presentations at our salon, we're talking about issues of equity, for instance, like when it comes to advancing the career of women, right, in the sciences. We don't see that many women leaders in senior positions. And then if you look further into that, we don't see many racialized people, researchers. And so, how are we addressing that through Women Mind? How are we hoping to change that? And that's part of the work, right? We want to provide opportunities for women researchers, scientists who are coming from diverse backgrounds to be able to have an opportunity at CAMH. And part of the support that we're and the funds that we're raising for Women Mind is to help do that work, whether it's to provide seed funding, to up and coming scientists who are racialized, who typically sometimes don't always have access to, let's say, grants and funds to do their research work.
Have you found that there's been an uptick in interest in Women Mind since the pandemic has sort of brought to light this, the fact that women in many ways have been more severely impacted by the effects of the pandemic?
Yeah, I think that's what's drawing a lot of when we have these events or cultivation events where we have an opportunity to talk about Women Mind. It's a no-brainer. Many women know, and it's even just all the data that's come out of the COVID crisis with regards to the impact that it's had on women. I find that a lot of women want to find out how they can get involved right away, because issues that one way or another, as I mentioned, we're all being impacted by this. And so, what can I do about it? Because we know, each of us know that someone, or even in our own lives, where we have faced mental health issues. And so I'm finding that it's resonating with a lot of women, and a lot of women want to be involved. Immediately they hear about, the goals of Women Mind. Why wouldn't I want to be part of this? As a woman, I want to be able to change the course of women's mental health. Even when I think about my own mother and my grandmother and the things that they've had to endure and didn't have a lot of options. And even now, when we look at some of the treatments, and even when you just think about women who are facing even postpartum depression from, and thinking about, the supports that are often, that they don't have access to, I think about all of these things, and why wouldn't I want to be part of something that's going to help, change treatments for women. And so I find that it's resonating. It's a cause that's resonating with a lot of women.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've talked about this before, that even the topic of mental health, specifically women's mental health, was really not openly talked about until recently. So it's wonderful to see that you are really engaging the community, having these discussions, which are sometimes hard discussions, but facilitating those discussions with your community of women. So I'm so thrilled that we got to have this conversation today. I know we're coming up to 11:30, and I know Serena is a hard stop at 11:30. She's a drill sergeant with time, which I very much appreciate. But thank you again for joining us for this first Campfire Chat of 2022. And next Campfire Chat I wrote down here is on Thursday, February 17th, and we've got the plan giving consultant, Joan Crosby from Golden Horseshoe, and her guest, Janice St. Dennis, is going to be joining her. So hopefully you'll all be able to join us for that. And thank you again for joining us today.
Yeah, and I would just add that for any one of our guests who, or those who have joined, who want to learn more about Women Mind, please go to our CAMH website, and you can learn more about the work that we're doing there with regards to Women Mind.
Or reach out to you. You're always happy
reach out to me.
with somebody too. Because you're just so lovely to talk to. So thank you again. And thanks, Serena. We will see you all next month.
Thank you.